Yep, Rakesh, you can start.
Thank you, CA Vignesh. Good evening and warm welcome to all our members, past chairperson, sponsors, our esteemed chief guests, and our speakers. It's a proud moment for all of us as a DCICI family for being awarded first prize for the Best Overseas Chapter Award for 2021 in the category 2. I request all our members to give a virtual round of applause for this achievement, which would have not been possible without your immense support and encouragement, and tireless work from all the executive committee members as well as our subcommittee members. Today is a day for double celebrations. First, we celebrate the success of our previous term, and secondly, we will lay down the foundation of a new team to take the success of our chapter to a new height. While we are looking for an interactive learning session and expert view on union budget followed by our 48th AGM, we request for certain do's and don'ts to be followed. Here are those. All participants are requested to mute their audio, questions to the speaker to be typed in the chat box only and will be answered at the end of the session. Further questions, if any, will be taken offline. All participants are requested to turn off their video. Doha chapter members are entitled for 2 hours structured CPE, and we request all members to join with membership number followed by their full name as per ICAI record. Now, I would like to request our member in welcoming our chapter chairperson, the ever-smiling, energetic, who always take a dynamic approach to every situation. Embrace his team with the mantra, engage, empower, enable. CA Nirlab Bhatt with thunder round of applause.
Thank you very much, Rakesh. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Respected chief guest of the evening, CA Mahavir Singhvi, IFS, speaker and leading light of the CA profession, great supporter of the activities of the overseas chapter, past president of ICI, CA Amarjit Chopra sir, and DCICI members. Good evening. At the outset, let me thank you for your great response to the budget event, followed by the 40th Annual General Meeting. On this very, very important event for both outgoing and incoming team, we cannot be more fortunate than having 2 esteemed luminaries of the profession who have achieved an unenviable height and still never ceases to contribute to the society and give back to the profession. We'll start our event with the budget event, and that will be followed by the AGM and the election. CA Vignesh has already circulated the agenda till 7:30 p.m. Qatar time. We'll continue with the budget event. That will be followed by the AGM. And around 8:15, we are expected to start the voting, and election process will be started tentatively 7:50 p.m. We request you to maintain the decorum in view of the action-packed agenda and also in view of the presence of the very, very high-profile luminaries. Now I will take the pleasure in introducing CA Mahavir Singhvi, Joint Secretary, Government of India, Ministry of External Affairs, and who is chief guest of today's event. Mr. Mahavir Singhvi was appointed to the Indian Foreign Service in the year 1999. Since then, he has served in several important assignments in the Ministry of External Affairs. Presently, he is working as Joint Secretary, Counterterrorism, in which capacity he is looking after India's bilateral and multilateral counterterrorism diplomacy and cooperation with foreign countries. Prior to this, he had handled work relating to Central Europe, Africa, Latin America, multilateral economic relations, SAARC, border connectivity, development partnership, etc. He has also represented India on several international forums during his various assignments in the diplomatic service. Sir is a regular speaker on diverse subjects at various national and international conferences, seminars, and summits. Mr. Singhvi has been educated and trained at the University of Oxford, UK, IIM Ahmedabad, Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration at Missouri, and Delhi University, and his qualifications CA, CS, CMA, LLB, MBA, etc. He has been bestowed with several laurels and accolades during the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India's Achiever in Public Service Award and CA Business Leader in a Government Development Department Award. He also secured University Gold Medal in his graduation and in Rajasthan board exam. He has been invited, which I forwarded that recording link, and it's a prestigious moment for all of us. He has been invited to speak in a series, Chartered Accountants, Growth Gears by the ICI. More than that, friends, CA Mahavir sir has been steadfastly guiding and supporting international expansion of the ICI and also Doha chapter. We have been extremely fortunate to have sir's presence in our CA Day celebration in July 2021. Friends, I must admit that the bilateral investment summit which we had organizing was a shining example of CA Mahavir sir's visions and guidance to all of us. Mahavir sir, thank you so much for always guiding and inspiring us to contribute to the vision of the ICI and also the embassy and consulate. Sir, you have helped us keeping the flag of India and ICI higher on this overseas land. We are fortunate to have you virtually, albeit, and I have promised you that I'll visit you to seek your blessings in person. But it's an honor to have you at the first overseas chapter of the ICI at the chief guest in its 40th AGM. Looking forward to listen your words of wisdom, sir. Mahavir, sir.
Thank you, Nirlab. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction which you gave about me. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to always participate in the events of the Institute, and especially the overseas chapters, because I am in the Indian Foreign Service looking after India's bilateral and multilateral relationship abroad in various sectors. Right now, I'm looking after the counterterrorism issues. So for me to, to be participating in any event being organized by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India abroad, especially the various chapters which are there right now, more than, I think, 45 chapters now we have, and we have almost around 25 more representative offices spread across in almost 70 countries. I think that shows the strength of this great institution, of which we are all alumni. So I think it's always a great pleasure for me to participate in any of the event of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. And thank you once again for inviting me here. Today's topic which we have set is very relevant, and we have a very esteemed speaker with us to give us a detailed analysis of the budget. Sri Amarjit Chopra ji, who has been also the past president of the Institute, and I'm sure that with his words of wisdom and his analysis, we all are going to be benefited. I would also like to congratulate you on the occasion of being bestowed the best overseas chapter in a particular category, and I think that shows the kind of work which you are doing. This is indeed commendable. I wish you could have attended in person the ceremony which was organized by the Institute here. I was there for some time, and I witnessed the ceremony and the chapters being awarded by the Institute. I think it's a great feeling, and my congratulations to you for that. I would also like to convey my congratulations to the new team which is going to take over after, I think, this annual general meeting which you're going to host today. You have done a commendable job. The existing team has done a commendable job, particularly in organizing several events along with various stakeholders, including our embassies and missions. In fact, all the chapters have done that, but particularly I think Doha chapter has been quite active and has organized event which you just mentioned, like investment summit. I think that is what perhaps was required from the Institute's chapters abroad. And I'm very happy to see that a lot of chapters, they are doing work in this direction, getting associated with our extended arms of the government, which are our embassies and missions, and to realize and to fulfill the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat and the $5 trillion economy, which our Prime Minister has envisaged in the time to come. So I think you're doing a great work, and I congratulate you for that. My best wishes also to the new team. Coming to the budget, I am sure you will get a better idea from our esteemed speaker of the day today. But I would like to only say that this budget, in fact, lays down the foundation of the future of India when we prepare for India's 100th anniversary. And I think there has been a lot of focus on creation of infrastructure, creation of digital economy, and creation of green economy. And the budget allocations, if you look at that, shows clearly the direction in which we are moving forward. The government has set its eyes on revival of the economy, which has been impacted badly by the pandemic. And I think this budget is also an effort in that direction, of course, along with the various schemes which the government has announced from time to time, including a large package of Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-sufficient India. I think that is a wonderful initiative, and the budget also would contribute in that direction. So I think the budget covers almost all the sectors, be it infrastructure, be it support to agriculture, be it defense, be it creating a digital economy, telecom sector, inclusive development, health and education has been a focus. Urbanization also has been, I think, a focus area. And there is also a boost to MSMEs. I think budget has something for everyone, and that is, I think, is quite commendable. This is a growth-oriented, forward-looking, progressive budget, which will further strengthen India's commitments towards its sustainable development goals. And I think we would be on a path to a faster and more inclusive development in the times to come. As far as the taxation is concerned, I think this is again an area which is very, important, particularly for chartered accountants who are gathered here today. I think our speaker today would give better idea about that. But there has been a lot of provisions to see that the tax structure is also simplified. There's a lot of incentive in the budget for I would say creating ease of business, further creating and further facilitating ease of business in all aspects. I think it is a very progressive budget, and the government is doing a great work in that direction. And I think it is the duty and responsibility of all of us to contribute positively towards the development of the country. And in fact, you are the advisors for various things, including bringing investment into the country, joint ventures, facilitating, exports, imports. I think you can play a wonderful role in the economy and for the country. I think you have perhaps, as rightly said, you are the ambassadors of any country's economy, and particularly, and that's very true for us. In fact, Prime Minister also said these words when he addressed the institute some time back, that you have all the chartered accountants are ambassadors of the economy. I think you are complementing and fulfilling that role very effectively while being abroad. And I wish you all the best in that direction. Thank you once again for inviting me. I'm also very eager to hear Amardeep Chopra sir and his analysis on the budget. But once again, thank you very much. It is always a pleasure to attend such events. And I look forward to sometime meet you in person in Delhi. So you're most welcome here. Looking forward to meet you. And thank you once again.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inspiring address. And yes, we will continue to contribute to the vision of the ICN, especially in this land of Indian Ambassador to Qatar. With your guidance, sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
See you, Devki. Yes.
Thank you, CN Irlab. Dear members, it's my privilege and honor to introduce an esteemed and prolific speaker, C. Amardeep Chopra sir, who is going to enlighten us on the topic experts' view of Union budget. He is a chartered accountant for more than 46 years, almost compared to my age. Mr. Amarjit Chopra is a senior partner of GSA and Associate LLP Chartered Accountants, New Delhi. He was the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He was the chairman of National Advisory Committee on Accounting Standards by the central government for 4 years. He has recently been nominated by Government of India as a member of National Financial Reporting Authority. He has been nominated by the central government on bench 2 of Disciplinary Committee of ICI for a period of 4 years from 2018 to 2022. As chairman of committee to revise company's auditors report order 2016 and on the standing committee for discriminalizing the Companies Act 2013. Earlier, he was nominated as a member of Investor Education and Protection Fund Authority by Central Government of India. He was also nominated by IRDA on the Standing Committee of Accounting Issues in Insurance Companies. He participated in board meeting of IFAC, CAPA, and SAFA at the international level. Banking, finance, and insurance sector interested him immensely, which could be evidenced by his nomination as independent director to Bank of Baroda and Indian Bank, member of the SEBI Committee on Disclosure and Accounting Standards, board member of the IRDA and member audit committee of the RBI. He served the International Audit and Assurance Standard Board of IFAC as technical advisor during 2009-10. He served on the IFAC Committee of Professional Accountancy Organization Development for a period of 3 years, 2010 to 13, and went on to become the vice chairman of the committee for the year 2013. Corporate governance and due diligence attracted his attention and was nominated to the SEBI committee to review the performance of corporates as regards governance. He was appointed by the Government of India to investigate complex issues in relation to Messrs. Xerox India Limited. He also served as vice chairman of the high-powered committee of ICI that examined Satyam fraud in India and investigated several other matters during his career as professional auditor. He has been conferred honorary membership of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Australia and New Zealand. A prolific speaker, he has delivered more than 2,950 lectures on various topics, including accounting and auditing standards, IFRS, financial inclusion, insurance, corporate laws, corporate governance, ethical standards, peer review, both in India as well as abroad. He has contributed articles in journals and newspapers on matters of accounting, auditing, and corporate governance, and has been a part of panel discussion on these subjects on some of TV channels. He is presently on the board of Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited, Rico Auto Industries Limited, Rico Investments Limited, Roop Automotive Limited, and ICI Accounting Research Foundation Limited. Dear members, please help me welcome with a big round of applause, CA Amarjit Chopra, sir. Sir, virtual screen is all yours. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Devkiji, for an extremely generous introduction. And Mahavir Singhviji, the Honorable Joint Secretary of the Ministry of External Affairs. And I must say one thing, relate, that I have never seen a Joint Secretary being so supportive of the Institute. I have also had a career of almost 46 years, more than 46 years. I spent 15 years in the Central Council, and I have been connected with various committees even subsequently, and 6 years in the Regional Council also. I think, Mahavirji, I can salute you for your dedication towards the profession, towards the Institute. The way you have promoted this profession abroad, I think deserves a lot of kudos for that particular matter. So my very sincere appreciation of all your efforts, sir. That's all I can say. Nirlebji, you are, I can say, ever smiling. You are one of those chairmen, and I must congratulate you and your team for bagging the first prize so far as the overseas chapters are concerned. And I can tell you it is no mean an achievement. It's just wonderful. And I'm sure that your incoming team under Ankit would also do the same, continue to raise the bar for the incoming people, basically in the subsequent years. And I'm sure that your chapter is going to do wonders in the years to come. I've seen Gaurav Kakkar doing it earlier and bagging the first prize in that particular year. All other members who are there on your committee and the participants who are there, the topic for the day, the Union Budget 2022. I can say when on 31st of January, the economic survey had come in, and the economic survey had said that India had done extremely well, and we had already reached the pre-pandemic level. Rather, we had exceeded our GDP growth by about 1.3% compared to the pre-pandemic level. So that indicated that the development is there so far as the country is concerned. And people were expecting in that particular mood that probably the government would listen to the middle class, to the common man, and would come up with certain measures by increasing standard deduction, by allowing certain higher deductions for the medical expenses, certain higher deductions for the interest expenses, for the housing loans, etc., etc. I appeared on one of the channels on the TV, and I said that the government does not have the resources right now, and probably the government will not be able to actually give it, despite the fact that there are elections to the 5 states immediately after the budget, and probably the government could have succumbed to that particular temptation. But I am so happy to note that the Honorable Finance Minister, while delivering the Union Budget 2022, her speech was, in terms of the words, 43% shorter compared to her speech in the last year, basically. But then what she delivered was, one thing was very clear, that this particular government or this particular finance minister was in no mood to succumb to the temptation of the elections to the various states, which were in the very near future. And what has been presented before the parliament and what has been presented to the nation is a budget which has been very aptly described by Mahavirji, a very progressive budget, futuristic budget, a developmental budget. I think that is the beauty of this particular budget, if one has to really tell me. Despite my saying on the channel that probably the government doesn't have the resources to really come up with some of the concessions for the middle class people, as we say in Hindi, ye dil mange more, basically, or ye dil hai ki manta nahi. We were still expecting that probably government would still give something to the common man, but it didn't happen. So I would like to start on one note that this is not a budget for a man on streets. It will not enthuse a man on the streets. No way it is going to enthuse him. It's not a budget for the common man. Let's be clear so far as that particular aspect is concerned. But it is a budget which Mahavirji said lays down the foundation for a future India. I think that's very important. And any government which really looks at the future of the country, I must say that kudos to that particular government, and I must compliment that particular government. If I look at the budget very clearly says that the capital expenditure will go up from 5.5 lakh crore to 7.5 lakh crore, which they have incurred, basically. Now, this is up by 35%, believe me. A country post-COVID. Now, it is not even a post-COVID period, let me put it that way. It is, the COVID is still on. Maybe the total number of the cases has come down to 13,000, which is a very meager number in terms of the total population of the country. But the fact remains that it has been a COVID period for the last 2 years, and the government spent almost 35,000 crore on the medical healthcare in the last 1 year for vaccination and the other measures. The government has been hard pressed, and the government has been very, very hard pressed. And the burning questions before the government has been number one, the inflation, and number two, creating the employment opportunities. Now, one way of looking at the budget could have been, or probably the thought process could have been, that if you keep on incurring too much of expenditure, probably inflation will be further fueled in. And because the more the money that you place in the hands of the people, the greater is the demand which is created as per economics. And in that particular case, probably the inflation can go up. And the second thing is that you have to create employment, and you create employment by actually making expenditure. Unfortunately, in India, in the last 5 years, it is even pre-COVID period, the private sector has not made the kind of investment which was supposed to be made by the private sector. Private sector has not contributed that. It has been the public sector which has been contributing. It is the public spending which has actually contributed to the spending. Now, in this particular regard, the government has made a capital expenditure of from 5.5, the jump has been from 5.5 lakh crore to 7.5 lakh crore. Now, it is absolutely phenomenal if you really ask me. But then that is the only way that you can look at creating the demand in the market. That is the only way that you look at creating the employment opportunities in the market. And if you look at the total budget today, the budget says in the next 1 year, I'm talking of just 1 year, NHAI, that is the National Highway Authority of India, or National Highways work, the total to the highways, 25,000 kilometers will be added in 1 year. Now you think in terms of how much it works out to per day. Just divide 25,000 by 365. I think you will get the figure. It's almost 80 kilometers per day that you will be adding to the total thing. This is absolutely amazing. If you really ask me, that in a country like India, if you can add about 80 kilometers per day to the national highways, it is absolutely an amazing process. And I must say, I must compliment Mr. Gadkari for that particular matter. He has been the one who has been working silently on the national highways, and you go and you will find what kind of work has been done in respect of the national highways and how it is important. It is important in many ways. It is important that it creates employment, because it creates employment. It creates demand for steel. It creates demand for the cement. It creates demand for the employment opportunities. And more importantly, to me, what is more important is the moment you create more employment opportunities, you are able to handle the law and order problem in the country. Because the more the unemployment in the country, probably it can be a law and order situation worsening in the country. So if you have been able to create employment by whatever means you have been able to do it, I think in that particular case, one thing which is very important is that you have been able to visualize your law and order problem also in the country, for that matter. And one more thing that one may like to say is that the moment you talk of national highways, and if the national highways are good, if your traffic movement is absolutely uninterrupted, which means that your supplies are absolutely unhindered. You are able to maintain your supplies in time, equivalent to the demand, whatever has been created. And also at the same time, you are able to save so much on the fuel cost. I can tell you, you go to Delhi, you go to Ashram Chowk itself in Delhi, there is one research which was conducted a few years back, the kind of fuel wastage which is there because of the traffic blockage in one particular area, I think it is phenomenal. If on national highways you are adding to that particular extent, and you are able to reduce the fuel cost, you are able to reduce the fuel wastage, I think it's absolutely phenomenal so far as that particular part is concerned. Mahavirji said very clearly that what we are into, we have emphasized virtually every aspect of the economy in this particular budget. We have talked of the digital university. First digital university will be created in India. It also talks of 75 digital banking units to be created in 75 specified districts, basically. Now, one will say that 75 is a very small number, maybe, but then when you are talking of specified districts in which it will be created, I think those specified districts will not be too advanced. Those specified districts will be quite backward, or maybe of the level that the government wants those districts to grow. If you can create digitization there, I think this is again a wonderful attempt which has been made. One thing more that I would like to tell the friends is that one particular scheme that the government has come up with in this particular budget is with regard to one station, one product, or one product, one station, whichever way you can call it. What does it mean? We all have been talking about the capital intensive industry in India in the last 4 or 5 years or last 10 years. Whatever anybody has talked is that capital intensive industry has been set up, whether it has been in the private sector or it has been in the government sector. But what is the backbone of the country, backbone of the economy? It has to be MSME, basically. If at all you want to create employment, if you want to create employment opportunities, you have to promote the MSMEs in those cases. This one product, one station, or one station, one product scheme, what it is going to do? You go to Banaras. Banaras is a hub of silk. Basically, silk sarees are famous there. If you go to Mandya in Karnataka, it's all wooden toys which are there. You go to Jaipur, it could be case of handicrafts or it could be case of gems. Also, for that matter, you go to Ludhiana, it's a case of hosiery products in those cases. Now, what is the intention? The intention is in all these stations, wherever you have skilled labor with regard to a particular product, exploit that skilled labor, exploit the skills of that particular labor, and create the exportable surplus there. And if you are able to engage more and more people, if you are able to create more and more of the products, if you are able to produce more in these places, and if you are able to create more of the employment opportunities in these places, if you are able to deploy more of the people in these places, what is going to happen is not only the production is going to increase, I think your exportable surplus is going to increase. I think one particular part that we all need to understand is in the last about 4 to 5 years, when China's exports came down in respect of some of the products, particularly take the case of the textiles for that matter, we were all expecting that India will be able to take advantage of that particular situation. But who has taken the advantage of that? India couldn't take advantage of that. That advantage has been taken by Vietnam. That advantage has been taken by Bangladesh. Now, I think if you get into this particular scheme of one product, one station, in that particular case, you will be able to create exportable surplus in respect of such products where you are more competitive. And if you are competitive, probably you will be able to increase your export. And if you are able to increase your exports, I think you get into the right kind of a mode in all these respects. So what one is trying to tell you is that this is one budget which talks of the university, it talks of health, it talks of product creation, it talks of demand creation, it talks of your national highways, it talks of agriculture. Look at the agriculture. In agriculture, it has been said that we will promote Kisan drones. Now, what is this Kisan drones? I can tell you during the COVID period, Nirlevji and everybody, we all know that as auditors, we were struggling how to carry out the physical verification of the inventories. And the auditors made use of the drones to physically verify the inventories. Today, the government is trying to make use of these Kisan drones to make sure that through these drones, you get into the cultivable areas, you are able to assess the cultivable areas, you are able to assess the utilization of the fertilizers, you are able to assess the utilization of the seeds, you are able to assess certain other factors so far as the agriculture is concerned. Mahavirji said that this really takes care of the various sectors. One of the sectors which it takes care of is the cargo sector also, the ports for that particular matter. What it says, this particular budget says that they will create under the PM Gati Shakti Yojana, basically 100 of the ports will be developed over the next few years. I think this is again wonderful so far as the overall scheme of the things is concerned, so far as the country is concerned. If you can have these kind of ports which will have all kind of facilities, I think your imports improve, your exports improve, everything improves so far as the infrastructure part is concerned. This budget actually, there is a talk of 400 Vande Bharat trains to be introduced. I think absolutely phenomenal, if you really ask me, so far as the budget estimates are concerned. At the same time, when it talks of the direct taxes, though I personally feel, and I think in the presence of Mahavirji, I am trying to say, what I expect any government, not only this government, I think any government should get into a long-term fiscal mode, rather than a budget coming every year. Budget may be only as to from where the funds will come in and where the funds will go in. That's fine. But so far as the policy matters are concerned, particularly with regard to the taxes, there should be an assurance to the industry. There should be an assurance to the investors that what is going to be our long-term fiscal policy. I think that's very important. I still remember when Mr. VP Singh was the finance minister, he tried to introduce it. Of course, it could not be carried forward. I still remember the words of Mr. Nani Palkiwala, who used to say that Indian budget, particularly the tax proposals, is like a railway ticket, which is valid from one station to another. That's all, which means that from one year to the other year, it is only valid, nothing more than that. I think that certainty has to be given to the investor. That certainty has to be given to the industry. That certainty has to be given to the taxpayer as to how you are going to be taxed in the periods to come. That's very important. I think that is one area which I think this budget could have done a little better. We should have gone in for the, you can say, a long-term fiscal policy. And I probably in the years to come, we might hear more so far as this particular part is concerned as to what will be the case. But before I move on to the tax proposals, some of the tax proposals, I would also like to say that this budget particularly takes care of two more areas in a great manner. One is with regard to your housing. Under the PM Awas Yojana, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, it actually lays down a budget of about 48,000 crores, wherein it is going to be creating houses for the common man. And then in India, the demand for the clean water to be taken to every household is very important. It lays down 60,000 crore rupees for that. I think absolutely amazing. A government which people say is strapped of funds, does not have too much of funds, if can come up with these kind of schemes and can lay down so much of the funds and can set aside so much of the funds for these kind of projects, I think it's absolutely amazing. And this also goes on to prove one thing, that your future, the future of the country is absolutely bright. The future of the country is safe, because it means that you will have better infrastructure, you will have better education, you will have better health facilities, you will have, you can say, better port facilities. Everything is going to be in a better mode in the times to come. But when it comes to the direct tax proposals, as I said to begin with, that this is not a budget which enthuses a common man, because so far as the common man is concerned, he only looks at the standard deduction बढ़ गया नहीं बढ़ गया, tax slabs में कहीं exemption limit बढ़ गई नहीं बढ़ गई. That has not happened, some or the other. I can correlate this budget to a movie called Mera Naam Joker. When that movie came, of the greatest showman that Indian Bollywood has produced, people said, what kind of a movie? Is it a movie? What kind of a movie? Absolutely terrible. And the halls were vacant, believe me, empty in the first instance. But as people started realizing the theme, as people started realizing the acting of each one, as people started realizing the storyline of this particular movie, the movie started getting picked up. And in the subsequent periods, people liked this movie far more. And I think this is one budget which will be liked in the times to come, which will be hailed as one of the most progressive budgets in the times to come. In the direct taxes, 2 or 3 things I will like to say out. One thing is that this government has recognized that there is something called digital currency. And this government has said that Reserve Bank of India will come up with a digital currency. Though, believe me, there is a lot of talk whether digital currency should come in India or should not come in India. Even today's paper are writing all kind of views so far as the digital currency is concerned. Cryptocurrency, as we have been talking about, the different forms of the cryptocurrency as we have been talking about, one of the biggest pitfalls of that currency has been that probably people feel that it can be used for drug trafficking, it can be used for terrorist money, and it can be used for anything, though it may sound very well so far as the gains part are concerned. Because the people who had one Bitcoin in one particular year, what is the kind of value to that Bitcoin? I think it's absolutely astounding. But what is more important to understand is that unless a country regulates the currency, after all, so far as our currency is concerned, it is a tender money. Why it is a tender money? Because it is backed by the government guarantee. It is backed by certain government reserves for that particular matter. But what is cryptocurrency? Who backs it up? Nobody backs it up, and there is no guarantee. In India, it is still not illogical to trade in cryptocurrency, but it is not a legal tender. If you give somebody a 100 rupees note, if you give somebody a 2000 rupee note, it is a legal tender. But if you give somebody cryptocurrency, it is not a legal tender. Let's be very clear about it. He may accept it, he may not accept it. It is up to him. You can't say that it is illegal not to accept it. But if somebody doesn't accept your 100 rupee note, I think it is illegal for him not to accept it. So what the government has done is the government said that we will not like to say that these cryptocurrencies are illegal. They used one particular word and they said that all these cryptocurrencies will be treated as digital assets. And any trading in digital assets, any gains with regard thereto will attract a tax of 30%, maximum tax of 30% for that matter. And then they applied a withholding tax also. With applying withholding tax to that, whosoever will undertake a transaction, if at all any credit has taken place in by whatever name concerned, even if it is credited to the suspense account, but it is a transaction in respect of the digital assets. In that particular case, there has to be a withholding tax so that the government can track that particular money. I think that is absolutely wonderful so far as that particular part is concerned. Now, the Reserve Bank of India will introduce the digital currency. Which form it will be introduced, how it will be introduced, that will be known in the periods to come. Still, there is a lot of debate going on in the today's papers also. There is a lot of debate whether it will be a right move or a wrong move. I think whatever the government will do, it will do after assessing all the pros and cons in respect thereof. But the government has announced one thing very clear, that they are coming up, the Reserve Bank of India will be coming up with the digital currency so far as that particular part is concerned. Number two, what the government has tried to do is, in respect of the direct taxes, number one, they have tried to put a discount on dishonesty. There is no way that a premium can be put on dishonesty under any circumstances. And some of the things they have tried to simplify also for that matter. I will first touch upon an area in which it's a discount on dishonesty. Basically, the government does not want to give any premium on dishonesty. Earlier, what was happening was that suppose that there is some raid, there is some search, there is some seizure which has taken place in your premises, and there are certain, you can say, unexplained things, unexplained credits which have come to the light. These unexplained credits could be set off. This unexplained income could have been set off against your carried forward losses of the earlier years, or for the same year for that matter. Now the government says that if at all there are unexplained credits or unexplained income, there is no way that you will be able to get this benefit of set off of these credits or this income against any kind of losses. I think again, a very right move. You cannot allow a premium on dishonesty under any circumstances. You have to honor a honest taxpayer. If you have got something, if certain things have come to light which clearly proves that you have been dishonest in your transactions, now you can't say that I have a loss already existing and I should be allowed the set off of that particular loss against this. I think the government has done a good job so far as this particular part is concerned. The second thing what the government has done is, earlier we all know that income tax is income tax, but then there is certain education cess and there is a surcharge on income tax. Now, some of the most innovative minds in our profession also and in the legal profession also, of course, the businessman wants these kind of minds, these kind of innovative brains. These innovative brains said that this cess on income tax and surcharge on income tax is not an income tax. And this is rather only a cess, or this is only a surcharge, and it should be treated as a business expenditure. Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman, the Honorable Finance Minister, in her speech made it very clear that whether it is a cess or whether it is a surcharge, it will be only having the character of income tax, and it cannot be allowed under any circumstances as a business expenditure. So whatever legal opinion you have to obtain, you obtain. It is not going to serve any useful purpose so far as that particular part is concerned. Another good thing that the government has done, which may boost the revenue to an extent, basically of the government is, what the government has tried to do is, that earlier what was happening, that suppose you take a loan or you incur certain expenses to earn certain incomes which are exempt. Now, based upon certain formulas, based upon certain opinions, people would still be able to claim certain part of these expenses against the income. Now, the government has come out very clearly that if you have incurred any expense to earn any exempted income, that expense cannot be allowed to be set off against any kind of income. Because if the income which has been earned out of expenses is itself exempt from tax, how is that these expenses should be allowed against any other taxable income? No. I think this is again a good move, a justifiable move. It streamlines, it smoothens so far as the taxation process is concerned. Then the government comes up with a move which again will make the business ease of doing business better. It says that suppose in the earlier years you had a point in which the government had, the department had gone into appeal on a particular point of law, and the case is before the High Court or before the Supreme Court. And in the subsequent periods also, there is a point, the similar point. In all those cases, what had happened was, in the tribunal, the assessee had already won. But the department went into appeal before the court on a point of law, or before the Supreme Court on the point of law. Now the government has said that under no circumstances on a point which is already pending before a court, these appeals for the subsequent periods on the same matter would not be filed, which will mean that the litigation would be reduced in those cases. Whatever will be the decision of the court in those cases, that will apply to the subsequent years also. Why should we increase the number of cases before the courts in those cases? I think this is again something which is very much justified so far as the government is concerned. Another move which the government has come up with is that suppose you committed an error, you committed an omission, by way of which certain incomes were not included as a part of your income tax return in any of the years, or certain wrongful deductions were claimed in any of the years. The government says if you file a return within a period of 2 years from the end of this assessment year, In that particular case, you can file a fresh return paying a tax of 25% if you file within period of 1 year from the end of the assessment year, and paying an additional tax of 50% if you file it within a period of 2 years. That is more than 1 year, but less than 2 years for that matter. Now, what is going to happen in those cases is that I will myself come back rather than somebody initiating 148 or anything else. I can go to the government and say that I missed out to include this particular income, or I wrongfully claimed a particular deduction, and I am willing to pay 25% additional tax, or I am willing to pay an additional 50% tax, depending upon the number of years which have lapsed after the end of the assessment year. And then you can rest in peace so far as this particular part is concerned. The only thing that I would like to say here, and I personally feel that that is inequitable on the part of the government. They say if your tax demand increases by filing a fresh return, then you can do it. If your tax liability reduces, suppose you had inadvertently, wrongly filed a return including certain income which should not have been included. Certain expenses were not claimed by you earlier. Certain rightful deductions were not claimed by you earlier. It says that if the tax liability is going to reduce, that you cannot do. I think that is not justified. The government has to be equitable to everyone. If the demand increases, then you take the tax, and if the demand decreases, then also you must allow him the benefit. But I think it is a matter which is more pro-revenue rather than actually, I would say pro-assessee. If the government wants that, if at all your income has escaped assessment or you are claimed wrong deductions, and you want to then come up with a fresh return, you may file it. But if you want, it is the other way around, then you will not be able to do it. So I think if I have to talk of inequality, so far as the government is concerned, it is inequitable so far as that particular part is concerned. But otherwise, to an extent, it is definitely leading to ease of doing business to an extent. The government has come up with some of the proposals on custom duties, on GST, etc. Now, I don't know why the government has tried to make gems cheaper. It has tried to make diamonds cheaper, polished, as well as uncut diamonds cheaper. It has tried to make mobiles cheaper, mobile chargers cheaper, for that matter. But umbrellas have become costly. I don't know what belongs to common man, whether it is an umbrella which belongs to a common man or it is that diamond which belongs to a common man. So I've been saying in the lighter vein in my various conferences and lectures that probably the wives of the chartered accountants are going to demand more diamonds because these have become cheaper. And thanks to Mrs. Sitaraman for that particular matter. So I think this tinkering with the custom duties could have been avoided to an extent. And that is where probably the long-term fiscal policy comes into play so far as that part is concerned. And I think so far as certain amendments to GST are concerned, GST is going to make the life of the MSMEs a little bit more miserable. Because it says that suppose you purchase goods from me, I purchase goods from you, I have paid GST to you. But if you have not actually posted it on the website that you have actually paid the GST, in that case, I will not be able to get the credit of the GST. Now, this is mind-blowing to me. This is mind-boggling to me. I don't know why this kind of a provision should happen. I purchase something from you, I pay the GST to you, but you fail to host it on the website, on the portal. Now, the seller has also been given the license by the same GST department. The government, he is operating under the license of the government. Now, it should be, penalty should be on whom for not hosting it. I've got the invoice. I've got even the proof for the basically payment of the GST. Now the onus to deposit the GST will be on whom? The onus to deposit the GST should be on the seller, not on me. Unfortunately, who has been denied the benefit? The benefit is being denied to the purchaser. I think this is a bit too harsh so far as the purchaser is concerned, and it will increase the requirement for the working capital so far as the purchaser are concerned. And I think the purchasers are going to be on both the sides. At times, the seller himself could be the purchaser, and purchaser himself could be the seller at different points of time. So I think the defaults would take place on either side for that matter. So to my mind, this could have been avoided. This is too harsh a provision, and if at all the government wants, they should try to penalize the seller if he does not do it. He has been licensed by the same department. Why should it be the other way around? The person who has actually purchased the goods on a genuine invoice, why should he be penalized? And lastly, friends, I've always felt one thing. Equity demands that if two of the persons earn the same income, say you also earn 5 lakh, I also earn 5 lakh, then both of us must be paying the same tax. But here we are divided. Here we are divided into an agricultural income earners and non-agricultural income earners. And whenever an agricultural income earner may be a jamidar, because the way agricultural income has been defined, it says rent or revenue derived from any agricultural land used for the agricultural purposes. Be with me on this definition. It is not that it is the income from the crop. It can be a rent or revenue derived from the use of the agricultural land for the agricultural purposes. If I let out my agricultural land to somebody and he uses that agricultural land for the agricultural purposes, the rent that I receive is also agricultural income. Now you look at it, I am having land, vast land, I am earning rent out of it. My income is non-taxable. Whereas a person in the city, if he earns even 1/10 of the income of the agriculture, these kind of jamidars, his income becomes taxable. I think this has been inequitable. For ages, it has been going on. Every government comes and says that agricultural income is a state subject. So will not like to touch, and particularly after whatever has happened to the farmland bills, I think any government will feel shy of introducing the tax on the agricultural income. But somewhere or the other, we need to have a political will. We have been able to introduce GST. The state governments never wanted GST at a particular point of time. But thanks to Mr. Arun Jaitley, the Honorable Finance Minister at that time, later Mr. Arun Jaitley, who brought all the state chief ministers together, gave them all kind of incentive, and provided them a guarantee for first few years, and said, no, let the GST be implemented. And the GST was implemented. I think a similar move by any government would be most welcome, because it will lead to equitable treatment in the income tax also, for that matter. Thank you, Nirlebji. Thanks your team, and thanks every participant for providing me this particular opportunity to speak on this Union Budget of 2022, which according to me is a very progressive budget, developmental budget, futuristic budget. But yes, it does not give much to the man on the commons, a common man on the street. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your word of wisdom and enlightening us on various aspects of this budget. Because we all agree that this budget is progressive budget, which lays down the foundation of the future growth of India. And as you rightly said, government has given more focus on the capital expenditure. So there are many questions, sir, but considering the time we have, so we need to proceed further, because we have in our in the line, we have that AGM, we have that voting process, all are there in line. So thank you so much for your all word of wisdom, sir. And I'd like to hand over the dais to C.A. Nirlal. Over to C.A. Nirlal.
Thank you so much, Devki. Am I audible, hopefully?
Yes,
Yes,
you are.
Nirlip.
Dear members,